I'm Margaret Ann Windsor, and I have to use the name Peggy Ann Dempsey. I married Childers. I was kidnapped in 1941 and brought to Moulton, Alabama, and given the name of a dead twin, Peggy. I still have to use that name. I later found out in '83, both twins were killed by their unwed mother, Lina Dempsey, and they were murdered. And anyway, I've put all this up. Peggy was killed only 2 weeks or 1 week before they dropped me off there, dumped me there in that hellhole from England. JFK was part of it. The Illuminati is who I'm talking about here. The Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Bilderbergers, part of my own family, the illegal George VI. Elizabeth is a high standing, and she's illegal, okay? And so is the whole family. Not everyone in the family are, I hope. I hope. But herein is the reason I'm doing this now. I know that you either join them or they'll get you. Well, my father chose not to join them. And that's the reason Anastasia tried to get to my father, because she knew he would help her. Now, I look at the royal family, and I've been excluded. My father was excluded. And I look back, but there's got to be some of them. I know some of them helped me, and I know who's been trying to help me. But let me just say this. They intimidate people in this whole thing. They intimidated the royal family, and that is no excuse. No excuse. My father stood up to them, and he paid the price. He was married to Claudia Ruth O'Keefe Windsor, who was Queen of England 1936, when they stated my father, and this is what history, the lies that remain, that he married Wallace Warfield Simpson. Well, that was a lie in 1937. My father when he married my mom, she was Queen of England. He was forced to abdicate, and he always meant to come back, and he had an addendum that stated, should an heir be born, it would not disinherit the heir. And it was legal. It went through proper channels. So therefore, Uncle George, Elizabeth's father, who they knew who my father married and that she was queen, they helped in my kidnapping. And JFK, his father, had been appointed ambassador to England by Roosevelt, U.S. president, 36 till they kicked him out in 46. So JFK used to fly into the embassy 39 to 41. He helped in my kidnapping. Now that the Roosevelts were all a part of it. So the person that married Wallace Simpson was a double, an imposter. And his behavior, they had him deliberately doing behavior, all kinds of antics and things that people began to think that it was really my father. It was weird. Anyway, I wanted to get to this. My mom was school teacher, sister to Georgia O'Keefe. So they kidnapped me and brought me to Moulton, Alabama, and I put this all up on YouTube and Facebook. Before I found out about my kidnapping, I was doing a medical malpractice book, and I was living at Treetop Apartments in Marietta, so that was 1976. I moved into, oh goodness, I'm not believing I'm drawing a blank. What was oh, come on. Moonraker Apartments. Later, the book I was writing was MD, A License to Kill, and later, Timothy, I'm going blank here. Dalton played in the movie A License to Kill, and that was later after I was doing the book, and I believe almost about, I don't remember when, but it's a few years later. And Roger Moore played in Moonraker. So they're both 007 agents, and I even had two Aussie Brits in the Army that showed up, and it felt very good. I didn't know at the time, or I couldn't remember. I've been told that subconsciously I always knew who I am, and I understood after I ran in a political campaign in '83, Larry Flint was shot by a program shooter. And I was flown out there in '83, and I began to find out about my real name and my father and the takedown of him with character assassination. He was still alive, and so was my mom, October of '86 when I came to Roanoke. And they were older. They were 40 and 45. My father was 45 when I was born, so I did get to see my mom once. I was taken from them at age 2, and yes, Elizabeth, the whole family, all of them know. Now then, I said they intimidate the Illuminati. They control your media and everything. The Rockefellers, the mafia is really who they are, the Freemasons. But let me see if I can, because somebody sit out front here and deliberately, I mean, everything else was empty. He could have got his slot next to me, pump carbon monoxide in here, just sitting there pumping it for about 45 minutes till I went up to the office. And anyway, I'm still sick from it. I get what I really want to say. They have done things to me and my children here, and I had no clue why the horrible things had happened to my sons. And I found out that they're heirs to the crown, the throne after me, Mark, and then Scott. So we were separated about the time they almost killed me, April Fool Day of '80, and that happened more than once, but that was a time when I should not have been able to walk away, and I was taken across the state line illegally. And finally, about 8 days later, a tox screen was done, and it showed what was in me. And there's no way that I should have walked away from it, but I did. If you call it, well, walking away was what I've been doing, walking. Made a pauper out of me, kept me homeless and all. What I wanted to tell, though, I was writing about mind control murders, and one of them was Timothy McVeigh, who was put to death. He was programmed. And I won't go on to the list. It's how these have happened. The Tucson, Arizona, with Gabby Gifford, the congresswoman, was shot, and Mark Kelly is a twin to Scott Kelly, and I'm appalled that it's unreal, because you can Google MK Ultra, but the ones I was writing about were done in patterns and continued to be, like the Blacksburg next door Virginia Tech shooter, that he was from South Korea and he turned the gun on himself. He was told to assassinate himself, plain and simple, after he shot. He's the victim too, and people can't get that across in their heads. But anyway, the 33 that was shot there, but this is how this has been done. And you can take a plane down like the KL that the doctor I wrote about, Larry McDonald, the congressman, went down. Nixon was in Juneau, Alaska on the plane. They took him off. They took a whole plane of 260 plus just to make sure that people thought, or they really took him down, that Larry McDonald was on it. Now, I became a candidate and flown out to Flint's. And I never thought, Flint furnished me a car for a year. I never thought I'd come back. I kept the car for a year. I went through Charlottesville, not too far from Roanoke here, I guess about 60 miles maybe. University of Virginia is there. That's where Anastasia was, and she was murdered. It was on a Sunday, the first Sunday in, oh God, I can't forget that now. Oh, when did they do that? May. It was either the 4th or 6th. It came on the radio as I was going through there, and I'm just finding out about my kidnapping as of late '83. And I knew Anastasia was my cousin, just like she is to Elizabeth, and like Elizabeth is to me. Well, I'm not sure she's that close a cousin, but she's about a third cousin to me, or second. Anyway, she did live, and I'm going to go on to this, but she was murdered then, and they lied about it. They murdered her. The poor lady ended up being murdered by the Blue Ridge. They locked her up. It was illegal, And someone she didn't even know, an attorney, had a warrant, had her locked up, and they killed her on Halidal. And I even got papers to support all this, that the guy that lived 18 years with them, was their friend and handiwork. He was given court papers from Charlottesville. There was a bunch of them where the members of the royal family came over here after she died, and this was court proceedings that nobody will touch. Okay, now, so this was Anastasia, and it's horrible how she was treated. And she was married to Professor Manahan at the University of Virginia, who tried to help her. He even drove his car into the gates trying to get her out. Now I'm going on to this because mind control has been since the Tesla files, but who says it started then? I want to go back to Tsar Nicholas, and I'm just writing this down. I'm just going to throw it out there. You can put together or Google it yourself if you care to, because you really should, because this is the beginning of the takedown by the Illuminati, and it's in power, believe me, fixing to roll over. Okay, Nicholas II of Russia was forced to abdicate. Does this sound familiar? On the 15th March 1917, I believe. No, 1894. He was forced to abdicate on the 15th March 1917. He was assassinated July the 17th, 1918, and my scribbling has got me messed up here a little bit. Nicholas II of Russia, the fourth wealthiest figure of modern period. Execution of the Romanov family. His wife, Tsarina Alexandra, and their 5 children. Well, Anastasia lived. This was really Anastasia, that's for sure, that was killed up here in Charlottesville. I wish I had gotten to meet her. But anyway, look at the cover-ups that have gone through, because later they were supposed to have found the bodies, and that Anna was in there. She wasn't. Her body wasn't in there, and had DNA and all that. Now I wanted to go to... here's how they try to use it to discredit. And God knows they've used that on me and my kids. Unless you see the truth, it's been deleted, and then it changes the whole picture of it. But anyway, they had her and Tsar Nicholas going to supposedly a holy man, a notorious sexual promiscuity, hard drinking, corrupt, etc., Gregori Rasputin. Now then, if you go back in history far enough, you'll find that Rasputin probably dealt in hypnosis. I'm sure he did. So that's how he had some of the power, and it was blamed on Alexandra and Nicholas. Now I'm going to go to Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the presumptive Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife Sophie, Duchess of Hollenberg. I want you to listen how they, part of the royal family, they've intimidated everybody. That doesn't excuse the rest of the family there, and it certainly doesn't excuse Elizabeth. That was money hungry, grabbing, going along, selling their own. My uncle sold his own brother out and stole the crown, left the Illuminati, because he went along with them. So they installed their own monarch, and then they kidnapped me. So the man that shot Sophie and Ferdinand, name was Gavrillo, last name Princip. He fired a gun into their limo and killed them. Then he turned it on himself. Does this sound familiar? Like Aurora, Colorado, or Tucson. Well, I don't know if Tucson, Arizona did, but most of these, they have them programmed to turn around and shoot themselves once they've uh, done the killings that is dictated, and they have no choice. And that's the part that people don't want to believe. And a lot of people have been put to death wrongly and imprisoned. Timothy McVeigh was put to death. He told all of you that that military put a chip up him, but the place most of them put it is your dentist puts it in a root canal. And they've told stuff the other day. They come out again about they can GPS you and all that. And if you try to tell that to people, oh, it's very true. It's like on your telephone, your IP address. They put a chip in you, and I'm going to leave it at that. And then they try to say you're nuts. You know, there's nothing nuts about it other than people have let it go on till where it's no chance to go back now. But this man turned the gun on himself, the shooter, and he was supposed to be a Serbian nationalist in Sarajevo, Bosnia. Now I want to go, I think if I can find it, I had something else. Well, I don't, I guess that was all. I thought I had something else down there. Anyway, if you go back through the royal family, you'll find where there were plane crashes that were out of character, something wrong. And when I started researching, I found that, well, you can mess with an airplane, but then you can program someone to mess with it. But you can also program the pilot to fly off into oblivion, into the mountain, and go into the ocean. And look at all the planes in the past, but it brings in security when someone is on the plane and they got a bomb, or they got this or that, and all the security came to be. So anyway, it was used on the, probably a lot of them, but it was used. Hey, how about Hell Boggs up in Alaska? I believe his name was Hell Boggs. The plane went down. That was weird. But I mean, there's a lot of them. But this one about the KAL that had the Korean jetliner that went down with the doctor I wrote about, Congressman Larry McDonald, August 31st of '83, and that's when I was flown out to Flint's in that campaign, and he helped me, and he had an endorsement in Hustler magazine that said that I knew who was responsible for his shooting in Lawrenceville, Georgia, March of '78, and well, he was a part of trying to have me killed April Fool Day of '80. I thought it was because of the book, and then I find out it's who I am. There's the reason they did all this to me and my sons. So it really goes back that a lot of the members of the royal family were killed in strange, that I look back and I wonder if it wasn't mind control used on them. I am not excusing anybody. If they did things of their own free will, that's horrible. And it certainly looks that way. When you go in and they've got a, well, what's the name of the world's, it's almost like the New World Order saying it. And probably, I know Beatrix of the Netherlands, she sold out. She was one, she's related to me just like she is to Elizabeth and Philip Mountbatten and etc. And it makes me sick to think that they sold out and people actually look up to them. Your the War Crimes Tribunal is there.